please pronounce your name correctly for me?
Yeah, so if I was... I mean, that's not a simple question, is it? Because if it was my dad pronouncing my name, he'd say Haroon Mirza. In England, I'm Haroon Mirza. That's the anglicized version. The French version would be Haroon. There's Mirza. So, like traveling, when I travel for work, I get all kinds of pronunciations, and I could just go with the local version. So Haroon is the local version in the UK.
All right. Well, let's take that back a second. So you said your father would pronounce it one way, French would pronounce it. So what's your family lineage then?
Well, the name is actually a Persian name.
Okay.
Mirza. But my family are predominantly Pakistani. My dad was actually born and raised in Africa, in Tanzania. But I was born in London, so it's
quite a global family.
Yeah, it's a combination of things.
Yeah, like my parents and their parents were only born and died like 50 miles away from each other.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that probably my parents had the same situation more or less. But now, yeah, I mean. For my kids, for instance, like they're born in London, but they're half Italian, half English, Pakistani. So who knows? Who knows what? It's a question of nationalism as well, isn't it? Like, what is nationalism? Sorry.
well, versus globalism as well as also.
Yeah, nationalism versus globalism. Yeah. What a tension, right?
Well, I'm American, my wife is Czech, so our child is going to be what?
Yeah, citizens of the world,
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
All right, so you're an artist yourself, and you were participating in LIAF, the Lofoten International Art Festival. It's a festival, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I always get the wrong.
Yeah, festival. Yeah, I keep on saying biannual, but it's festival.
Okay, but it is every 2 years,
Yeah.
so I guess it probably should be biennial rather than festival. Sounds like it goes on every year, like Lollapalooza.
Yeah, right. But LIAF sounds better than Liab.
Yes, agreed.
Or Lib.
Liab. Liab. It doesn't have the same roll off the tongue, does it? So you're part of this particular occurrence of the festival, of the biennial, sorry. So how did you get involved in it?
So I guess, I was invited by the Franceschi, the ragazzi. I call them the ragazzi because they're the guys, although that's only one of their names. And so it was an invitation by them. And, I've known them for quite a while through my ex-wife, Gaia Fugazza, who's also in the exhibition. She's an artist as well.
Wait, Fugazza, same name?
Fugazza, no, that's Fugazza Ragazzi. So there's a Ragazzi and Fugazza, so it's a different name.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're not, there's no
relation.
Yeah, there's no relation. There's nepotism, but no relation. It's a little bit of nepotism going on here, dare I say it. As in, I know these guys, but I only ever worked with them recently.
But wait, nepotism in the arts? That's shocking.
Nepotism in the arts. Well, the thing is, the way I see it is like healthy nepotism and unhealthy nepotism.
Well, there's also there's professional nepotism versus like family nepotism. Like if a father just gives his son a business just because he's his son, that's something. That's a family business. Yeah. I get that, but that's fine. I don't mind that, but there's it depends on whether that son's an idiot. But yeah.
Yeah, no, but in the end, that there's in that instance, I guess. It's a sort of a lineage thing. It's a legacy thing, right?
A lineage and a legacy. I love those, but nepotism.
And also, but that's inheritance is the same thing, right?
Sure.
So passing on a business is just like
Yeah. Okay.
easy.
Bad example on my part. Okay.
Right,
Nepotism here in this particular situation. So what's the? Well, I guess the question would be: so you say you were invited because you've had previous relations, almost said previous relations with the curator. You've had previous working.
It's not like Bill Clinton or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
no.
It's not that kind of relationship.
No. You've had previous working relations with the curator. So, like, how did you all meet in the first place?
Well, through my ex-wife. So she is friends and has a professional relationship with them because she's also an artist from Milan. So that's how I got to know them. But then I recently kind of worked with them. I mean, I was doing a project and they kindly helped realize this project because I was shooting in Milan during the pandemic, and I needed to with the production I needed to get hold of certain type. I needed to get hold of bus or like there was like some things that I needed to organize in the city during the pandemic, and these guys stepped in and really helped out, and we even did a shoot in their apartment in Milano. And so that was the kind of first time I worked with them, but that was me sort of approaching them, asking for help. Otherwise, I hadn't worked with them. I kind of knew them just from from the connection. Yeah.
Okay.
But then, this is where a working relationship formed, and I think, in the art world, we call it the art world, but it's not. It's an industry like any other industry, right? In this magical world.
Well, that whole thing, like the idea of calling it art world versus art industry versus art market, they're all the same thing, but they're all very different things.
Yeah, well, I think there is a difference between the art market and the art industry, because generally what happens in the art market is not really reflective of what happens in art. Whatever. Which I mean, like, there could be the most significant and interesting art being made by artists or collectives or whatever, but that doesn't mean it has any presence in the art market. So the art market and art production or art making, the industry of art, is somehow there is two different things going on there.
Oh, I'm sitting here with a sort of mocking look on my face, but I mean, I totally agree, and whenever this topic comes up, I always sort of am looking for somebody to convince me of a better way to sort of differentiate those, because the art world, people don't like that word because it's almost too big.
Yeah,
I think
it's kind of
the arts industry makes it sound a little corporate-y kind of thing, which I'm sort of wishing that wasn't the word either. And then of course the art market is really just commodification, sales, and money transactions. Very transactional. So like trying to find some better way to explain that, because I mean, the idea of the art institution is the fact that basically it's the producers, it's the actual practitioners, it's the creation with no basis in worrying about money, which of course is a lie because we all worry about money, but it's the hope that we can not worry about money. But anyways,
well, I guess the point is with artists certainly, and then this extends to like curators and museum people as well. A lot of people don't do it for the money. And a lot of people make art for free, essentially. Most 90% of artists don't get paid, for what they do.
In their lifetime,
perhaps ever. When I say
I'm an optimist that way.
When I say artist, I mean like, everyone from like Sunday hobbyists, Sunday painters to people that are doing major museum shows.
Okay, then I'll obviously give you your 90% on that then. Yeah. I'm a bit more of a snob. I wouldn't include this.
Yeah. Well, I kind of include everyone that kind of does things that have this, that there is no real world utility to them, to these things, like. Now
that's a fascinating description of art.
Yeah, but
no
then I also
real world use. Okay.
No real world use, but actually then, contemporary art, I guess this is a contradiction somewhat, has a massive utility to it in terms of, maybe bigger than a laptop, for instance, that you would assume has a lot of utility, but actually So it's a double-edged sword. So there's, on one hand, you don't do it for the utility, but the utility is much greater.
It's more sort of societal use.
Yeah, it's cultural,
yeah,
but also economic. With the market side of things, there's an economic utility.
Let's not
to
talk
it.
about the market. I have a feeling.
No, I'm talking about like when I say the market, I don't mean necessarily people that sell art. I'm talking about gentrification, how gentrification happens around culture. So like areas in places or cities that are inhabited by artists and musicians and culture, that those are the places that have the highest rate of gentrification. So that's
because the artists make it cool.
Yeah, well, maybe, but it's a thing. It has so art itself has this economic utility, is what I mean.
Oh, it absolutely does. But yet the problem with that is that you can't quantify it.
No, you can't quantify. That's why it's exploited.
I know, exactly. Like if it could be quantified, we could then easily be reimbursed or paid for the service.
It's just, some places do quantify it. That's the thing. I think Scandinavia quantifies it quite well. Even Ireland, for instance.
Yes.
They there's no tax. Now there's even a stipend, maybe.
That's right. They are.
So it's like,
a
universal basic income, right?
Correct.
For artists, right?
Yeah.
Now that's quantifying it. That's validating.
I love that. I'm thinking about moving there just for that.
That's incredible, right?
It's not eligible for me. I'm not a citizen, but I would.
Yeah. But like United States, forget about it. In the UK, going the same route as the United States,
Is it?
It's totally. The Arts Council that once was is no longer, what it says on the tin.
I was going to say, I thought it was some really, powerful, influential lobbying kind of group or whatever. Like they actually did good.
Yeah, they do. There is, but it's very tricky now. Like most of it is not 100% funded. Now it's like match funding, so you have to get private money. So it's actually becoming more and more like the United States. And there's no the problem is there's no tax relief like the United States. So it's kind of neither here or there. So it's pretty bad. Austria is better. Scandinavian countries are much better. France has a union. Yeah. So
I always just find it really funny how people always use the United States as an example of bad.
Well, it's not. The thing is, it's just a different way of doing it, which is completely
Just to be clear on this, I think it's horrible. So like I'm on your side. Like America is amazing in its art market.
Yeah, totally incredible.
So great commodification, great sales, great sort of marketing, branding, whatever kind of stuff. Like they are magnificent at that. But as far as like the great ideas and the great opportunities even, I don't feel like America's the place for those things necessarily.
Yeah, sure. I guess it's to do, ultimately it's to do with what the promise of democratic capitalism, and that's what America is sort of founded on. It's this convergence between democracy and capitalism.
I love it how it's funny. My parents, well, my father in particular, always corrected me. America is not a democracy. It's a republic. Yeah. It's a republic.
Oh, really? But so he's always said that.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating that your father's always told you that.
Always correcting me because I'm always great. Like, what about democracy? And he's like, you don't live in a democracy. You live in a republic. And I'm like,
wow.
Fine.
Your dad sounds pretty progressive, or quite sort of.
Well, he's a priest, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Episcopal. So Anglican.
None of this adds up for me.
Thank you. You understand my family very well now. That's good. Yeah, we're an interesting family for sure. He's a priest for his entire career. He retired. He now is a Russian iconographer.
What? A Russian iconographer?
Specifically, he does 13th and 14th century Byzantine Russian icons.
Oh, wow.
He teaches it. He produces it. That's what he does.
Yeah, that's insane. That's quite a career shift.
Well, it's still a religious practice.
Yeah, I guess,
so, it still fits. Yeah. And he actually had his... he got a bachelor's degree in art. So he actually has an art background. So it does fit for him.
But you know what? I always thought that being a priest or, being a person of God is like a not a lifelong, like a, how would you describe it? It's like a commitment that that's just your calling in life, and that's what you do. To then go, actually, I think I fancy doing something else.
Oh, no. He did a full career and retired. So, like, he was a priest his whole... My dad's, like, 80 years old now.
Yeah,
so
I know, but, like, the idea of having a career and being a...
It's a job.
It's
a job. And the church is a company.
Yeah, this is it. Well, this is what I'm talking about,
That's what I'm clarifying for you. Like, I remember being a kid and, like, showing up for, they call it vestry meetings, but you could call it, like, a board meeting is basically what it was. And they sat there and just talked about money and how to get it and how to spend it and how to use it. And all, and I like, asked my dad, I'm like, is basically the church a company? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. We pay taxes. We do our thing. It's just like a company, because if they don't have enough money, they have to close the church. And I mean, there's a hierarchy to it. You're going all the way up, bishops, cardinals, blah 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 blah. But I mean, not in his church, but it's a company with a whole series of managers, middle managers, higher managers, all that kind of stuff. So
that will give. I mean, I guess that's why he would come to the conclusion that the United States is a republic.
Well, he was also a priest in Washington, D.C., so we were around a lot of politics also. But it is a republic. It is a republic because a true democracy is one person votes on everything. Like, so, like, anytime there's a new bill,
everyone votes on everything.
Every single person in the country votes on every decision. That's a democracy.
Yeah.
We vote to have a representative who then votes on our behalf. So therefore it's a republic.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's different sort of schools of thought in democracy itself, but also there's a very efficient tax collection in the United States. The IRS. I don't know why we're talking about America so much.
I know.
It's your action that's doing.
We've gotten way off topic. I mean, you just brought up the IRS. Like, fuck, dude. Like, seriously.
But I mean, like,
I want to make it clear: the IRS is the opposite of efficient.
Yeah. Well,
just to be clear.
No, maybe, but
no, most inefficient government organization in all of America.
But anyways. But the United States collects tax pretty well, right? I mean, it's not like people pay tax more or less.
But they do it in such a conniving way. I fucking hate it. Like, here, okay, I'll give you some... I have no idea why we're so far off topic. But in Europe, okay, so like you go into the grocery store and let's say there's a liter of milk and you're like, okay, I want to buy this liter of milk. The price is listed on the rack there. It's what? Like, we'll call it €2. I don't actually know how much milk costs, but €2, right? Yeah. And you go to the cash register and you pay €2. Done. Right. It's simple, transactional. Yeah. You know this. This is how it works. Great. In America, you go and it says $2.
And then you pay the tax on top.
Right. And then you go to the cash register and it's $2.16. Yeah. And it's like, well, why the fuck didn't you just put that in the first place? Why are you like hiding this from me that I then get like this added on thing? Yeah. Why didn't you just include it in the price? So much easier. Yeah. Like, I love it when I go to European stores. Yeah. When I see a price, that's what I pay. Yeah, and I don't have to sit there in my mind and think like, okay, but how much is the tax here? And the way I have to add that amount. And I'm really bad at math and like.
Yeah, but it's even worse in restaurants. No, because because tipping. Here you have you have the price, what it is, 20 euros, and then it says, and there's 12.5% added as a tip, and that's it, and then you got the total, and that's it. You just pay that. There's no maths to do.
I love it. I love it. In America, they always say like, oh, should we tip? Oh, well, you tip between 10 or 15%, depending on how your waiter served, if liked them or not. And I'm like, why? This is not a popularity contest.
It's a competition.
No,
everything is a competition.
But it's not.
Everything. This is the thing. This is what I, like.
And this is a great way to get back to the arts. But go on.
This is a great way to get back to the arts. But it is like a competition. Like the funny thing about. I saw a seagull outside. I'm so obsessed by those things, but the competition. Yeah, this idea of the American dream or the Constitution. Like the whole premise of the United States is based on, here's a piece of land. There's people there, but they don't understand ownership. There's no concept of ownership. They're like egalitarian sharing.
Those
folks.
native people that have been here for centuries.
So let's not worry about them. Wherever you put your flag and you just fucking run for it, right, and put it down, that's yours.
And put a fence around it.
You put a fence around it, right, and then you own it. It's yours. But why is that the land of the free? That's not the land of the free. That's like right from the off. It's basically theft and proprietary and ownership.
But not only that, but these foreign countries, France, England, all these other countries came in and fought over the land that it was neither of theirs.
No one really. It wasn't free land. It was free land. But then this idea of ownership was just superimposed on this land, and the people that didn't really believe in ownership or have a sort of
got
care
screwed royally.
Well, yeah. So it's kind of a funny situation. So it's kind of this competitiveness, and I guess. How are we going to bring this back to art? Is art a competition?
Absolutely,
is art a competition?
It's an interesting dilemma because on the one hand, it is okay. Well, I mean, but only because of egos. We compete because we want to have better opportunities, we want to have a better prestige, be parts of better festivals, trying to bring it back here, and be part of better biennales, all these different kinds of things. It is a bit of competition, but the hard part is that art in particular, the actual product, we'll call it, the outcome of creativity, that is you can't be competitive about that. You can be competitive about your job, your grants, your residencies, your basically your accomplishments. Yeah. But once it comes to the objects themselves, the expressions, they kind of can't be competitive. Yeah, you can't.
And I guess also the whole idea of art, certainly now at the moment, I don't know if this has always been the case. The very idea of it is like this kind of unique voice. It's your own personal voice, and it's unique, and it's it's irreducible.
Well, you hope it's unique.
It's an exception. Yeah, you hope it, right? But that's the idea, right?
There's a lot of copycats in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of
hoping
copycats.
It's unique.
But you can't. So therefore, you cannot. The very endeavor of it doesn't really fit with the idea of competitiveness, because you can't be in competition with another artist because what you're doing is completely different to what they're doing.
I agree with you.
If you see what I mean.
Totally, 100%. One of the things I love about the arts industry, and even going back to I said arts industry, was that the right word? Yeah, that's the right way. So the arts industry is that, even going back to art school, even when I was in a class with other people who did the same mediums, so I was a photographer in school. So when I was I never felt competitive with my fellow photographers. It was always sort of how did you do that?
Yeah,
really,
right.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, okay. And there's this great sort of high tides rise all boats kind of philosophy of or at least that's my philosophy. It's may not be everybody's, but I always see the entire practice of being creative as a communal thing, because you're sharing, you're offering tips, you're just even being inspired by looking at somebody else's either finished works or even their process of creating is oh wow, how did you do that? And it's so great. That's part of what attracted me to being part of this thing, because of that sense of community and sort of together sort of growth that happens, or I should hope happens. Maybe it's my horrible romantic ideas, but that's the way I hope it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all hope that. I think everyone that goes into art making, anyone that goes to art school probably has that sort of romantic idea, and it's partly a romantic idea, but it's also the right idea. It's the kind of essence of art, right? Was it? I can't remember. I think it's Monet or someone like this. I might be wrong. There's this quote that I remember that always sticks in my mind, and it's I don't think it is Monet, but anyway, I'm sort of paraphrasing as well, right?
Absolutely,
so
we all do.
And artists aren't in competition with each other. they're in competition with themselves and the last work that they made, you know. So it's kind of, and that's the thing, you know, you do things and then you're like, oh, okay, that's just opened up a whole new 1,000 possibilities, you know. And you want to kind of make a better work. Essentially, you want to make a better work than the last one.
You always want your newest work to be your best work.
Yeah, of course. And it always kind of no, it isn't. That's not true. Yeah. But it is for you.
In our
minds. It is for you.
Yeah.
In your mind.
In
our minds it is, because that's why we're doing it. Otherwise it would be like, you know, if I've made my best work, that's it. What am I doing making anymore, right?
I know plenty of artists that they are fully like recognizing and aware that they have already made their best work and that they're not going to make anything better, but they still continue to work.
Yeah, there's always hope, you know.
Yeah, that you might suddenly come up with something new. So like sometimes you have lulls. Sometimes like
I mean, that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, you got that. Like my professors used to talk about it like as a wave. So like you have like your good years and your bad years.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing a wave form hand gestures because nobody can see me doing this. But
a sine wave.
Yeah, there you go. So you know, I mean, it just happens. You can't be on top of your game 100% of the time.
No, and how, you know, why would you anyway? You know, like what's the, like what, where do you go with something, you know, like I think great works of art in the end are things that accumulate a whole bunch of stuff and they sort of apex, and then it becomes a great work of art, and then, you know, it's the apex of that sine wave that you're making,
and so it takes a lot of like practice, trial and error, and there are going to be a lot of sort of like, you know, mediocre things on that path to get to that apex.
Yeah.
But and then of course you hope that like the right people, the right time, the right place happens to notice the apex work and not the lull work.
Yeah,
but
totally.
That's a whole different issue. Let's get back to LIAF. But let's not go directly to that, because a lot of the listeners may not know about you. So like what's your background, your artistic practice, like a little bit about sort of what you do and how you got here.
Yeah, so I went, like most artists, went to art school and kind of did that for quite a long time. I have 2 masters. I did a master in design.
I have 2 bachelors and 1 master's.
Right, yeah. So I have 1 bachelor's and 2 masters. Studied design and then fine art again. I had a fine art undergraduate degree, and then and at some point, I think on my first master's,
in my
original master's, I got into kind of which was actually a design MA, right? I got into making autonomous systems for some reason. I was interested in autonomous systems to create and reproduce music. I guess that was my sort of,
that sounds cool,
the brief that I had set myself. And I was just wanting to design new systems to both produce and reproduce music, right? But that ended up. But I was never into this idea of like a product, you know, something that can be packaged, branded, and, you know, it itself be reproduced. I was always kind of just into the prototype, and because the prototype was seen, I guess, more as like, you know, these weird objects that had this strange presence, it kind of felt appropriate to recontextualize into like a more art.
I would love to see an art exhibition of prototypes.
Yeah,
like, that's
prototypes. Prototypes are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're all about like fulfilling an idea, and not necessarily like marketing it or packaging it or branding it. It's just like, how do I make this thing function? Yeah. Whether it's an artistic functionality or a practical functionality. Yeah. But anyways, we digress again. So, so you were in design school working on prototyping of musical transcription. Reproduction. Like production and reproduction. So that's what I was kind of interested in. But anyway, then they felt more like art objects. I went and did another MA and sort of recontextualized the same stuff
into art. But I mean, eventually, and this took me a long time.
Well, just to give it something, so like what kind of time period, like years are we talking about? I don't even know how old you are.
So
if you don't mind me asking.
I just turned 45.
Okay, you're younger than me. I'm 48. I'll be turning 49 in a couple months.
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, sort of similar generation.
Similar,
I guess, yeah, more or less the same generation. But
we have
anyway,
similar amount of. No, I have more gray hair than you.
I don't know. It's great. Close. So this is in the, when would it be, in 2003, 2004? I probably was doing my MA, my master's at Goldsmiths, and that was a design MA. And then I went to Chelsea College of Art and Design and did a fine art MA to, purpose the prototypes. Yeah, and then it kind of kept changing, like in terms of like what I thought I was doing. So I think after my second MA, I thought I was kind of making music with objects, right? So I was just using like furniture and some musical stuff like turntables, but not in their intended way, and I don't know, electronics, LEDs and things to kind of generate these compositions, these like sonic compositions, and that will be layered and structured, and you'd get these like autonomous, semi-chaotic sounds or pieces of music. So I thought, oh, okay, so I'm kind of making music, I guess, with objects, So that's kind of what I thought I was doing. I mean, even now, what I think I'm doing is just what I think I'm doing, but it's probably something else.
Well, it sounds like you're from a conversation that we had over dinner just before starting this recording. It sounds like you're still sort of doing things like that. Yeah. So that's for sure. But then it wasn't until, I don't know, a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe now. So for some time I thought I was, my work was that of a composer, but not necessarily a composer in the traditional sense of music, chamber music or writing music, because I don't read and write music and I'm not working with instrumentalists or anything like this. But you have to have a decent ear for what you're doing.
I'm not even sure if I have a decent
ear.
I mean, like,
there's a certain amount of, because if you have a certain amount of musicality to what you're producing, you have to like at least understand sort of tones and rhythms and things like this.
But but in a very phenomenological way, in a very like intuitive way, not in a completely untrained way.
I was gonna say, can you read music?
No, I can't read music, but I DJ'd for a long time.
But could you, like, if you heard a particular tone, could you say that's a middle C?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't tell you that. You see, this is
Just
it. It's almost like even my taste buds are like that. If I close my eyes and put something like a foam of something in my mouth, which has got a very distinct flavor, I wouldn't be able to tell you what it was.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit weird.
Mine's probably because I've killed my taste buds with smoking. So like,
yeah, maybe I killed them. No, but I know that I know the flavor.
Or the chili. I have chili with every meal, so like I think I burned my mouth.
Yeah,
so
maybe I've done something like that. I don't know, but I don't think I ever was able to distinguish flavors. So I don't think I can distinguish tones or frequencies either. I can kind of tell if something's a low frequency or a high frequency or kind of. But I'm, like I work with musicians quite a lot, and they can say, "Oh, that's middle A," or that's, C minor, or whatever. Like, is there a C minor? I don't know. So I don't even know.
I have no idea. Okay. I know both of those words are musical.
Yeah, they sound musical, right?
Know if yeah, my father. Not to bring everything back to my father again, but like he's one of those fucking musical people that drives me nuts. He literally can sit down with any instrument and play it beautifully in 10 minutes.
Yeah, right. See, I do envy that.
Yeah. Like drives. He bought an organ, like a pipe organ for the church.
For the church. For
the house. Yeah, in our garage. Yeah. No, for the church. He had never played a pipe organ before in his life. He sits down for 10 minutes and he just starts playing away beautiful hymns and stuff. And I'm like,
that's impressive.
Fuck you. Like, seriously, I can't even keep rhythm. Like, I can't play drums. Like, I'm pathetic and the bananas.
Yeah, I don't think I can keep rhythm.
Well, but you don't need to. You can do it with computers. That's
you can
do
it with computers. I mean, I'm good. I can beat mix, with records, with vinyl, which is, I guess, a form of keeping rhythm, I guess, in some ways.
Well, recognizing it and aligning it.
Yeah. I think, I have a relationship to music and the structure of music and the tonality of music and all the things that musical theory theorize. And I have a really kind of strong relationship to it, but then it's completely like, it's through the back door kind of thing, So not really knowing it theoretically, but just knowing it through practice, or learning it through practice. Really, is probably a better, because it's always it's a process of learning, I guess, and then. Because I've never really been interested necessarily. I've never really been interested in making music or really. I don't know. I think I don't have the patience to make music in the conventional way, or.
Well, even the term like making music sounds like you're like recording an album.
Yeah, it sounds like something that requires a whole production or knowledge base, or like like there's some baggage that comes with it, and playing an instrument or instruments, so rather than knowing what middle C is, or let's say middle A again, rather than knowing what middle A is,
assuming that is a thing, but go on.
So rather than knowing what middle A is, I, in my own weird way, have come to the frequency 440 hertz, which is middle A, right? But it's also a frequency. But I only because I realized that I'm not interested in 440 hertz. For some reason, I'm interested in 444 hertz as middle A would be, on the assumption or on the basis that 2 octaves down is 111 hertz, which in conventional music would be 110 hertz.
Okay, I'm assuming that what you're saying is correct, so we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, we'll just roll with it.
Yeah,
it might be bullshit. I might just be making it up on the spot.
I don't know, and that's sort of the fun. Like, maybe you are.
Well, this is from my understanding. From my understanding,
fair enough.
Musical frequencies.
83% of statistics are made up on the spot.
Yeah, made up on the spot. This one isn't made up on the spot, but I might have got it wrong when I made it up. But let's not say anyone's right in the world. Let's just say everyone has their own.
It's
truth,
all artistic interpretation. Yeah. It's fine. Go on.
So, as far as I understand, middle A in sort of the Western canon of music is I'm not even sure if that sounds right, the Western canon of music, right? Anyway, middle A is 440 hertz as a frequency. And I, during, the last 10 years or so of working with sound or electrical signals and creating sounds from electrical signals, have been working with frequencies as opposed to notation. And for one reason or another, various frequencies come into my sort of sphere of thinking, and one such frequency is 111 hertz, and that comes from sort of studies. I mean, there was a particular paper, I guess, that was published 4 or 5 years ago, which associated architecture or ancient architecture to neurological effects. So, or neurological, sort of changes. So, so across Northern Europe, probably around here as well, there's lots of ancient sort of prehistoric, megalithic or Neolithic sites these are more like long barrows and sort of chambers that have been discovered that are kind of built into the landscape, and a lot of them have a resonant frequency in the room of between 110 and 112 hertz. So they've been carved out specifically so this not the size but the combination of the size and the shape of the room means that the resonant frequency is 100. The average is 111 hertz.
Okay, wait, just to play devil's advocate, were these actually carved, or is that a natural phenomenon?
No, they're carved. They're man-made rooms, chambers.
All right.
And so nobody really knew why that would be. And they've done all kinds of sort of experiments in there. There's something to do with like smoke when smoke is present in the room. It makes interesting patterns at that frequency. So with most of these things from sort of the sort of Neolithic period or before prehistoric things, when we don't understand what the purpose was, like I don't know, like Stonehenge or something,
right? We just make something up.
You just make something, or it's usually it's like religious or ritualistic,
which is really funny because like most of our lives are not religious or ritualistic, but yet we assume that all of their lives were.
So so that itself is like you say, an assumption, right?
Oh yeah.
But 111 hertz is in the human vocal range, male, like mainly male vocal range. I mean, some women can do it as well, females can do it as well, but it's the human. It's within the human range, but that frequency. So 110 is within the sort of normal, Western sort of musical scales, whereas 111 isn't. But there's this neurological effect that takes place, which is now what's it called? It's called hemispheric lateralization, right? Reversal, right? Which means, and let me try and explain this. So, which it means that if you, this idea that if you're left-handed, you do most of your dexterous things with the right side of your brain.
Yes.
Doing the opposite around, and other processes happen with the left side of the brain. But if you're right-handed, that's the other way around. But they found in a study, and these are neuroscientists, they found in a study that when exposed to 111 hertz of light and sound, there's this kind of flip that happens. So when you normally do certain cognitive functions with the left side of your brain, suddenly it flips to the right side of the brain, and they don't really know why. They don't have an explanation for it on, and how. There's no how and why. It's just an observation that's been made.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's kind of, there's these sort of interesting. So I got fascinated by these three things: the fact that this happens, this neurological thing happens, and that 111 hertz is also a human. It's within the voice range, and that this ancient architecture has this relationship with it. So that frequency became a frequency that I would then commonly use in my work. So programming light or electrical signals at 111 hertz and doing things with that, and that would be seen as light and sound.
All right. So now bringing this forward to LIAF. So no, really, I mean, I'm trying to because you've given us a great background of sort of who you are, what you make, why you make it, even, and some of your fascinations. So now, one of the things that, part of the reason for this particular set of episodes in the podcast is to talk about how does your existing practice of you have these interests in these things and these techniques and these methods and these philosophies and theories. And then you've now been sort of connected with a curator and and this biennial, because we're going to use the term biennial because we like it better. And So like, how does that relationship happen? How do you sort of like try to balance like what they need and want and what you need and want to try and make sure that the entire process sort of works well?
Well, they were the process has been quite sort of treacherous in the sense that, you know, there was a plan and we've deviated from the plan. So originally I was going to come here and do this residency. Maybe it was going to be a bit longer, and I was going to stay on a lighthouse, which is really quite inaccessible.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and in the lighthouse is a recording studio, so there's lots of equipment there.
Wait, there's a lighthouse here with a recording studio
somewhere,
in it.
yeah. Somewhere there's a lighthouse with
A remote lighthouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And so yeah, you can only get to it at certain when there's a low tide, and I'm not entirely sure where it is. We didn't even end up visiting, but so that was the original plan, and kind of you know, was sort of, you know, what we were working towards. But then there was practical everyday real life. And I could only really come during the kids' half-term period, and it meant that I was bringing the kids with me. But the lighthouse the kids aren't allowed on lighthouse. It's like for over 18s only, because I think there's a sort of health and safety risk with.
Yeah, let's see, a very tall thing that people can fall off of easily. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's partly that, but also I think the accessibility you have to get, you know, on and off. You know, I didn't fully understand what the problem was, but you know that. It was a problem, so I ended up staying here. So that was already like a spanner in the works.
Just to be clear, when you're saying staying here.
Oh, sorry, staying in Svalbard, which is not where I was already.
It's not a remote lighthouse.
Yeah, it's not a remote lighthouse. So
still in the archipelagos in
still in the archipelagos.
Norway.
So still on the islands, and but a bit more child friendly, let's say. Interrupting children, you know, those kinds of kids that we have. And
I would say this area is moderately child friendly, though. It's not 100%. It's a pretty rugged area.
Yeah, it is, but they're very good with sort of coastal situations.
Your kids, but not every kid.
Not every kid. Yeah, I tried to tell these guys that actually my kids probably would be fine with the lighthouse, but they have rules, you know, so that's that. So, but you know, Francesco, the curators, had just sort of said to me, you know, we want something, you know, maybe sound based in the show. They haven't really said much more than that.
It's a good call. You're kind of a sound artist, but yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess I could. I mean, I kind of really find the term sound artist a bit only because my work is so visual, you know, so it kind of takes, you know, sound artist is just 50%. I feel like it's only half of what I do, so
it's fair.
It's very rare, extremely rare actually. Like I don't think there's only been an instance recently where I've presented just the sound.
Okay, then I will correct myself. Yeah. Then you are an artist who works with sound.
Yeah, that probably. But you know, anyway, it's pedantic.
It's not. As artists, we're very sensitive to those labels and terminology. Like I get it, it's fine. Like I mean, I work with photography, but I'm not a photographer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So like, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. So that was kind of the only invitation, but. You know, I mean, I'm just interested in a lot of stuff, right? Generally, just a lot of stuff. And because I work with electricity, because I work with sound and frequencies and these things, I at some point got interested in, you know, what light is from a physical point of view. So, I mean, and I kind of went really deep in the sense that I ended up doing a residency at CERN at the Large Hadron Collider for a little while.
Exciting!
Yeah, that was so you know, kind of I needed to somehow learn particle physics not that I know anything to do with particle. I'm not.
I just one day I was just thinking, particle physics. I need to have an understanding.
Yeah, but I cheated. I collaborated with a guy who's an artist as well, I guess. But he had a master's degree in theoretical physics.
Well, to a certain extent, I mean, what it sounds like, a lot of what you do, it probably does involve a lot of collaborations with other experts in certain fields, because I can't imagine you have an expertise in all of these fields.
No, I don't have an expertise. I don't think I have an expertise in anything. I mean, the thing is, the exchange with Jack Jelfs, this person that I'm talking about, he wanted to bring his work back into art, because he was originally, his parents are artists, and he was a musician for a while, and then he suddenly had this sort of aberration to go and study
particle physics.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
those rebellious kids.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go to Imperial College and do theoretical physics. Fuck you.
And work at CERN.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
And so our exchange was, I kind of was, I mean, not that I taught him anything, but because he literally taught me, a lot about particle physics, like literally, because he does it for a living as well.
I know what the word particle and I know what the word physics means, but I'm not sure what particle physics is.
Oh, so it's like fundamental, so what the building blocks of what all of reality is made of.
Which is what CERN is there for.
Yeah, which is what CERN is.
Yeah.
Therefore, this is what also CERN, what they say to the world, that what they're there for. But they're like, in the end, they're like the rest of us. They're just doing their thing, and they're just
doing cool things
on
a really big scale.
On a really big scale, yeah.
Really big.
Yeah, and a very impressive scale, But for us, our project there was to do with consciousness. It was to do with the relationship between matter and consciousness, which is something that physicists
that's a nice
really
small inquiry.
Yeah, like a tiny little, tiny little thing, And then we answered that question, and then we went off and did it.
Good. Then you went out and had a beer. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
So and when you get to the crux of what physicists at CERN are doing, they're like, in the end, they're like the rest of us, and they don't really know. They don't know. They know that they don't know. They know that they're not going to answer the questions like, what are the building blocks of reality, and who are we? Where do we come from? The most interesting physicists know that that's like what, CERN as an institution has to tell the world to be able to get its funding to do what it does. Right.
Like artists do.
Artists do, right? Like we all do, right? So it's quite a humbling in that way, but it's also incredibly fascinating and just like profound, the work that they do there, the way that they're able to like really look deep or observe. Nobody's ever seen an electron or a proton or any of these things, but they can observe what they do. They can make measurements, on these things that are so, so tiny, that I mean, to some degree, it's completely abstract, But then, we interviewed a bunch of physicists there, and, you can ask them a question like, is maths an ultimate truth, right? But guaranteed, half of them would say yes, and the other half would say no. So even at that, sort of extreme end of knowledge, it's a bit of a free-for-all.
Sure. So then you've taken the stuff that you worked on in CERN, where you were starting to look at light and physics and all this stuff, and then bringing that back to the festival again, because this is my role here, to sort of keep wrangling you back to the festival. So and how that be, because now you've involved the idea of light, because I heard again, like I'm telling the listeners about things that basically we talked about at dinner. Sure. So the nature of light, because up here in this northern part of Norway, the light is a very important element in existence up here, and so then you noticing this sort of thread of like how things are going through your career and how they're sort of leading to this. Like, this is the thing that I find really fascinating.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting way of putting it, because, for the past 9 years now, I've been also working with solar energy quite a lot. So the thing that's incredible about this place, the edge of the Arctic Circle, is the sun, the presence of the sun. So at this time of year, in a few days' time, on the 21st of June, there'll be the summer solstice, and you have 24 hours of daylight. You have the sun just like circling around, like just there, right, the whole time, and that's kind of insane, right? And then fast forward to winter, the winter solstice. Yeah, you have zero sun, but you have the aurora, which is which is particles from the sun coming and combining with the gases in the air. The what are they? Electrons that get charged. They're charged particles, and they combine with the electrons in the atmosphere, and they emit photons. They emit light.
Oh my God. I love that you're telling me that, because somebody asked me what the aurora borealis was the other day, and I said that pretty much sort of like that same idea. I'm so happy I was right.
I mean, I read about it for the 7th time this week, so I'm like kind of trying to get it right. They didn't know for a long time what it was. I mean, even now, I don't think they completely understand how it's kind of working and how it's happening, and why there's several colors.
Yeah, there's also something about magnetic stuff.
Yeah, there's a sort of magnetic poles, and that's why it
Yeah.
exists around the North Pole and the South Pole.
Right.
But I mean, it's I don't know how it works, but
Sometimes the mystery is
yeah,
half
the mystery is enough, right?
Yeah.
But we know it's, as far as what you and I have both read, right, recently, we know it comes from the sun. It's the from the solar flares, the storms that come off the sun and end up here on Earth. But we've got the presence of the sun in its physical form of light and heat. 24 hours in the summer, and then you've got the aurora, which is also light and sound as well. Actually, the same processes cause sounds in the atmosphere as well. They're not actually connected to the aurora, so it's not like the aurora is making sound, but the solar storms, the charged particles also do something else in the atmosphere that creates sounds. So that sort of becomes for me, and what I do, just like something that I can't really ignore, in just from being here and experiencing it. So today, I came up with a proposal after spending a week here.
So after my entire life experiences and the fact that I've been like working with these curators for the past year and a half, today, June 4th, with less than 3 months before the project is meant to be fulfilled, we came up with the actual idea.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the idea is that in this old abandoned school building, there's a sort of a AstroTurf football pitch, mini football playground thing outside. So that is going to be there's going to be a sort of a solar array installed on that thing in a sort of a circular form around the edge of it, and that solar array is going to be feeding a device that I guess I will build in the studio, which will be converting the light from the sun into electricity through the solars, and then dispersing it with probably at the moment light. Probably it will be like LEDs and these tapping solenoids, which are like little tapping things, and they'll be tapping rocks that have been collected from around here, which will be in a circle, sort of like a stone circle, I guess, but inside this abandoned school. So that sound will be present indoors, but that sound will then also be transmitted outside to where the solar panels are, so you can hear the sound outside as well. That's the plan as it stands today. That sort of brainstormed or engineered today.
No, and I
being
love
on
this
site.
because I mean, as I said, this is sort of a behind the scenes kind of thing of the
Yeah.
of the process of this. So like, what kind of like concerns would you then see that what might make it so that can't be done, or maybe what are some other things that have sort of popped into your head that maybe you haven't even brought up to them yet, kind of thing. So like, because it's not, for lack of a better word, and I apologize for the pun, but like it's not set in stone. So, like, so you know, literally it's pretty much up until the day of the opening, you can make changes and all this kind of stuff. So like, you know, how much of it is the like. I would imagine the solar power seems like it's very important to you. The sort of either the tapping or the LEDs kind of thing is like element is important to you. Stone is important to you, but then everything else is still sort of how it's going to sort of combine is still sort of variable at this point.
Yeah, I guess it is, and I think, I mean, I just put that down to the process of making the work. I mean, I'm just, you know, like, and that just happens. And it evolves until the point that it's actually there in the space, and I guess we just have to rely. It's just a whole lot of trust and faith that needs to go on.
Well, one element that comes into that like we've discussed nothing about. We've talked about theory and ideas and concepts and stuff. As artists, we love just like talking theory and like coming up with big ideas, but in the end, it's still a biennial and it still has a budget, and so like it's still. So how has that impacted or affected you? Like, you know, you come up with great ideas and big ideas, as we all do, but then you have to take into consideration but also, just to be clear, not just like financial budget, but like time budgeting, the accessibility budgeting, as far as like just having the resources brought to this location, because this is not some central, you know, hub metropolitan area. So like there's a lot of sort of other logistical concerns beyond just finances. So how are you having to sort of balance all of that stuff in as well?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure that out, because before I came, like a couple of days before I came here, I was, you know, like as normal, I was sent a contract to look at and and sign with a clear sort of indication of what the budget is. And, you know, I'm quite, budgets are broken down for my purposes into two parts. One is a fee and one is the production, right? And the fee is always, in the end, negotiable depending on what the thing is. You know, if like sometimes, you know, if the thing is really worth doing, then the fee, you know, whatever, you know, like, or sometimes, you know, the fee is the reason why you do it in a way, you know. It's always like a balance. And well, I guess the fee is never the reason why you do it. That's kind of silly to say, because you would only really be in a situation, because I never really, the thing about the fee and the budget and like this kind of contract only comes up really late in the conversation.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the conversations that I have, I don't talk to institutions or organizations or anyone about money until I never, until they bring it up. And sometimes it's a bit of a problem, and sometimes it's all right. But, you know, so basically what I'm saying is like the fee is like a negotiable thing in terms of like what the situation is, you know.
Certainly.
But the production budget is a production budget, and certain things cost certain amounts to do. The studio has to run, and people have to be paid, and overheads and things, you know, and fabrication happens, things need to be rented and whatnot for.
Wait, I just want a little clarification. Yeah. You have a studio with employees?
Yeah, well, actually, currently, I have a studio, but there's no employees. Since the pandemic, there are no employees, and I only at the moment I'm working with freelancers, and that seems to work really well for now. I guess I'll have to go back to the employee thing at some point, but actually, this is a more sort of non-hierarchical kind of nicer way. Actually, working with people, with freelancers or people, some of these people that I worked with for years, and some of them were employees, and then they became freelance, and it's a kind of a nicer way of working somehow. So I don't know if it's sustainable. I'd prefer to continue working this way, but.
Well, I would imagine, because like the artistic lifestyle is not 40 hours a week, production all year round, always having something to be done, and that has a budget to pay an employee kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, freelance seems like a reasonable way. I mean, sadly, of course, I would love to hear that, we all can afford to pay full-time salaries, health insurance, the whole thing. That would be great. But, unfortunately, that's not the world we live in.
No, exactly. So producing things, and, that does actually cost something. And I'm pretty sure that what I've proposed or what we've discussed today goes over what's, been presented as a budget. So that's a conversation, I guess it's going to be the next.
Are they aware of that, or is this just something you're thinking to talk to them about?
No, I've already brought it up. I've already said, this is going to cost a little bit more than what's in there, but then then there's everything's a kind of a negotiation.
Sure, some other artist in the festival might be under budget.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know. We don't know what the.
I've never known an artist to be under budget, just to be clear.
It goes under budget. Yeah. So, but then there's also like beg, steal, and borrow. Like you get sponsorship, or you get like people to chip in, and like these kinds of things, and. Other people to help. Galleries can help sometimes, or we can, you can bastardize things from before, instead of like fabricating new things, So there's always ways,
Just to be clear, are you represented by galleries or a gallery?
Yeah. I've been represented by a gallery, quite an international gallery for the last 11 or 12 years.
If you just say like, Pace Gallery or something,
it's Listen Gallery, so they're quite, they're kind of a
White Cube, Serpentine.
Yeah, it is. Listen Gallery are the same. They're like the UK version of Pace Gallery, or more like who would be a good, probably like Matthew Marks or.
All names I recognize.
Yeah,
I know. Listen, I know the gallery. Listen.
Yeah, they have two spaces in Chelsea. Yeah, in New York. Yeah.
Okay.
So
very impressive. I'm very sort of envious, quite honestly.
So but there's also this love-hate relationship with galleries anyway. Because
I have pure love, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, the thing is, it's like there's this idea that galleries sell your work, but good galleries don't. I guess, this is a complete assumption or a idealistic way of thinking, but good galleries don't sell your work. I'm romantic,
so it's fine. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, good galleries don't sell your work. Your work sells your work, right? And good galleries are there, and they're very kind to you when the work is selling. So, if the market is hot, then galleries are great, but when the market isn't hot, which inevitably happens at some point, the galleries sort of go quiet, so and that's not really the fault of anyone really, but it means that it's a tricky thing, because one minute you're like shit broke, you have no money, you're kind of like making ends meet and doing your best. And then the next minute, suddenly you've got lots of like surplus income that you've never had before. This is just my experience. This is obviously not everyone's experience. Everyone has different experiences, of course. But my experience was going from absolutely, nothing, coming from a very modest working class immigrant family, to suddenly having, doing what I thought was kind of a hobby, basically, not a vocation, not a job or anything like that, to suddenly having quite like more money than I could ever imagine, even my dad ever having, in a very short space of time, and then building a life based around that sort of infrastructure and income, and then suddenly it disappears again. Nobody tells you that. The galleries don't say, oh, by the way.
Well, some do. Some do. Some are good. Like, I remember being told, like, like when things are hot, be sure to always save some money, because things will be cold at some point.
Yeah. I guess they did. They do tell you.
But that doesn't mean we listen.
Yeah, but we don't listen. I certainly didn't listen. I certainly didn't think. I just thought, well, this is it. It's all like. it's
going
all
to be
north
great.
from here, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the theory of an art career is it's a line that goes straight up.
Yeah.
Or like, well, on a diagonal is what I'm sort of drawing. But like it progresses better.
Yeah. But it's still that waveform that you were doing.
It really
it's
is, yeah. Even financially.
Yeah. Everything is a wave function. So
going back to your work,
the whole of reality is a wave function. So
based on particle physics,
based on particle
that he
physics,
now has a mastery in.
Yeah. So you kind of don't really expect that. I've kind of completely digressed of what you were saying, but you don't. There's no expectation of. At some point, there's no expectation of, because the thing is, the value of your work doesn't decrease.
Correct.
That's the weird discrepancy, right? So your work just continues as an artist, just continues to get more and more expensive, right? But then you can't sell the work for cheaper at any point because that will fuck everything up, right?
Yes, previous collectors will be angry because you've now devalued their work. Yeah.
So, but it means that when it's not hot, or where it's reached this sort of peak of like, oh, actually it's gone beyond that threshold, then nobody buys it anymore, right? Or for some time. Those are the tough years, and then you have to remodel. I mean, I guess what I did was, so for many years my work just became about production and fees, so I was relying on literally this kind of thing. It was like fees and production budgets, and that kind of worked actually for a while. It was kind of fine.
And what happened that ended that? I'm guessing it was probably like either 2008, the financial crisis, or the COVID.
No, 2000. I actually didn't really start making any money. It was the financial crisis that actually helped me, because it was a moment where, it was in 2011, 2012 where I started selling my work. 2008, I think that's when I graduated. That's when I sold my first work. But it was so fucking cheap that it was like, because, right, we're not going to, all the collectors are like, oh, they don't want to spend money in the middle market. They'll still buy. This is what happens when there's financial crisis or like pandemics or whatever, right? Meteorites and, asteroids and tsunamis, right? What happens is the middle market crashes.
The middle market on everything,
the middle market crashes, right? Yeah. So the blue chip is fine, and then there's an emerging market, like a low end market that people take punts on, and they can still. So that's where I was in 2008, and still in 2011, 12. It was kind of still that my work was still cheap enough to sort of be in that emerging market. So it was fine. It was fine for a while, and then the market just dropped off because I guess it got too expensive, and I wasn't hot anymore. There was cooler, much younger.
So you matured into that middle market.
Yeah, so I matured into that middle market, and things sort of slowed down. But then I was lucky enough to have good relationships with curators and museums and things to sort of evolve that side of things. And like I said, the sort of the fees and production was a thing that kept me afloat. And then I guess a few major patrons, collectors that would, buy things here and there to sort of help out. There's this sort of patronage part of the.
I'm not part of that world. I'm aware that it exists, but I don't know any of those people.
Well, I think they're people that they're usually, I guess, collectors that have bought work, when it's cheap, and then they want to continue to support. So it's kind of more like it's patronage.
Yeah, it's patronage. Yeah.
Yeah, so that changes but then pandemic hits, and that's like a completely different.
Well, I heard, I could be totally wrong on this, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but I heard that you were somehow associated with the Venice Biennale in one year.
Yeah, that was in 2011. Yeah, so I showed at the Venice Biennale in 2011, but I also won the prize for the young, emerging artist, whatever it's called, the Silver Lion for. I think it's like most promising artist or something like this, right? Which obviously gets it gets a lot of attention. So, I mean, things like that help, in terms of, people paying attention. And
well, the reason why I sort of led to that, though, is because, like, I've heard stories both ways. Some people say, like, I was part of the Venice Biennale and it was this great platform that then sort of launched my career, and I've done, XYZ since then because of that thing. I have also heard stories from other guests about, I was part of the Venice Biennale and my career ended after that because everybody thought I was too good for them. And so nobody invited me to participate.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of that as well. That certainly can happen. I don't know, like it's such a minefield. Like, it's not something you can second guess, or like, it's not. There's no formula.
Well, it sounds like your experiences were good, because you said 2011, 2012 was like a good year. That's when things started to go off. Yeah. And that's the same year that you were in the Venice Biennale. So it seemed to have been you had a positive trajectory from that point.
Yeah, and I think then it starts to plateau, around 2015. And you sort of...
I keep trying to make your career sound great. And
no, it is great.
And you keep going like, well, yeah, then it plateaus.
Yeah, but like we were talking, it's like a wave. But now, but then it comes back again.
It does. Oh, hopefully. I mean,
but it already is. For me, it already feels like, oh, okay, I've gone through this this sort of lull almost. But what is important is that I didn't just go, oh, well, nobody's getting in touch now, so I'm gonna, hang my paintbrush up and go and...
You're not a painter, but okay.
That's not... but I just continue to plug away at whatever, and then at some point people are like, oh, he's still at it, or what, so I think there's something to be said about perseverance. And also, like we were talking about earlier, I've probably made quite a bit of shit work as well, in that
I didn't say that, just to be clear.
No, but we all do, we make things that are interesting, and then we ride off that for a while, and it doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is going to be good until you kind of really get your head down and start, or some shit happens in your life that you have to think about things in a different way, and that comes out in your work. So I imagine it's a combination of all of these things, but it's not like, hey, here's a career. It's just this exponential curve that keeps going. The exponential is by itself a unsustainable thing. It always turns into a parabola.
Yeah. So
it curves around and goes.
Well, you just hope that, I mean, the curve, the sin curve that you're talking about, you just hope that the curve gets bigger, taller, not deeper in the sin, but higher. So you hope that the next better thing you do is even better than the previous kind of thing.
we look at I was joking about this wave function thing earlier, but like you say in physics, all of reality is kind of understood as a wave function, right? And we look around us now, and everything, if you look at the stock markets, people just literally sit there and look at these waveforms day in, day out,
Bitcoin,
like crypto, crypto is crazy for that.
NFTs. We're not going to go into
that. No, we're not going to go into NFTs. I'd love to, but we're not going to.
Would you really love to?
What, talk about NFTs?
Yeah.
I mean, we can. Do you want to? It's a rabbit. It's another fucking rabbit hole, isn't it?
Okay. Here, let's finish up the LIAF part of this. But there's something that you brought up though is so you do festivals and sort of commissioned works and things with institutions and stuff. What's the relationship? How do galleries care about that, or encourage it, or discourage it? What's the relationship? Because they're about, for all practical purposes, sales. But you're producing works that, for all practical purposes, are unsellable. Kind of thing. So they're sort of site specific, very time specific even kind of thing. So how does that balance out for you?
Yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? Because the cynical side is that galleries, their interest is commercial.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. They could sell this product. Sorry, I called
could.
it a product.
They could sell this industry.
Boy, that was Freudian. But they could sell this piece of art that you produce for this festival to a collector, and it could be transported anywhere. But I feel like that's not an obvious thing.
It's not. It's not an easy sell. I mean, I'm gonna be like,
you don't
frank,
say.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not like, my gallery. The thing is, I work with a really good gallery. Like they don't put any expectation on me on what to produce at all. They support things that, quite frankly, other people just wouldn't support. But it's also, there is another cynical side of it, is that if you're doing interesting stuff out there with these things that are unsellable, they can be selling the sellable stuff on the side, because there's always parts of a practice that can be commodified and sold. I mean, that's, I guess, the general idea or the cynical side of it. But the people that I work with are all kind of genuinely into art, or at least the work that art can do culturally and socially. So for me, like an artist like me in that roster, I'm not bringing in cash for them. Or huge amounts of it.
Okay.
There are people that perform that that side of things, and it allows and so it's an ecosystem.
Well, I mean, in every roster of every gallery, because I've also managed galleries back in the day, and there are the bread and butter ones, the ones that every time you have an exhibition, it pretty much all sells out, and then there are the ones that you sort of support because you believe in them and you think they make great work, and I'm going to be a little cynical about it, but and you like having their name on your roster kind of thing, because it gives a little panache to whatever, to your roster, saying, oh, we have this person, even though they don't sell very well, but we have them, kind of thing. So there's a balancing act to that, because if you had nothing but sellable and marketable artists, then you're a decorative gallery. It's you kind of have to have that balance in there, or else people won't take you seriously as a fine art gallery. They'll take you as just a poster shop.
But also, the artists that do have highly commercial, everyone feeds off each other. It is like a little microcosm. It is like an ecosystem of people, feeding off each other. And there's a discursive side of it that doesn't go away. There's a critical side of it that doesn't go away, which is part of it. So I think it's, I mean, having a gallery is a support structure, that can be really useful, even in doing something like this. I mean, my gallery aren't involved in this at all, but the last biannual or triannual that I was involved in Lille, for instance, they were really involved, in producing the work and helping it, even if the work is challenging in terms commercially, right?
Oh, you phrased that so much better than me.
But there's also the sort of the longer game. If the work, there's a chance that the work has some kind of relevance or significance, and it existing and being looked after might be of some kind of value in the future. And I guess that's what we all hope for. In some ways, yeah.
All right. Any last little things you want to say about sort of the project that you've been working on and will be sort of completing for LIAF, which will be opening September 3rd?
September the 3rd,
Which I'm so excited, because that's my birthday.
Is that your birthday? All right, great. Are you coming back?
No.
Oh, right. You're not going to celebrate your birthday in Lofoten?
Well, my birthday's, it's... my family. You want to talk about my family being fucked up? But it's my family for 13 years when I was a child. So from my birth until 13 years old, we celebrated my birthday on September 4th.
Oh.
And then I went to go register for, I don't know, summer camp, I think, sports camp or something. And I had to take my birth certificate to register. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, can I see my birth certificate? He's like, yeah, sure. And he just hands it to me. And I look at it, I'm like, I was born on the 3rd. And he's like,
what's the story?
So you were.
No, wait, what? But isn't there a story? Did they change?
Oh, it's even worse than that. In my little like baby book, right? They actually wrote October 4th.
No way.
October 4th. So they got both the month and the
No
day
way.
wrong.
How did they mess that up?
And then they even engraved a silver spoon, like they did for children at the time. And they did October 4th also. So like they fucked it up all around. So like for 13 years. And to this day, my baby book still says October 4th.
I mean, that's kind of cool. I like the idea of people not knowing when they were born.
No,
like,
no.
You know,
I mean, legally on my birth certificate, I know exactly when I was born. But my parents don't care that much.
Yeah, well, fine. I'm.
They still
admirable.
I'm 40, coming up on 49 years old. My parents will still call me on September 4th and wish me a happy birthday.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, a lot of my people from Pakistan, my parents' generation, none of them know how old they are.
Yeah.
They've got no idea.
It's not that important.
Like, whatever. Well, I don't know when my birthday.
I'm older than you. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. He's the first oldest. I'm the second oldest.
That's
She's
right.
the third oldest. It's like this. And that's it.
That's
like
all
this.
you need to know. Anyway, sorry. I digress that time.
Yeah.
LIAF.
LIAF. So the piece at LIAF, I don't know what to say about it because I feel like it's still in its sort of, conception in a way. It's still being conceived and involved, and I guess I hope it has some relevance to the place, to this location, and some relevance to the rest of the exhibition and the other artists, and there's a sort of relationship, and it's a sort of progress for me and my work, and it does something. It moves forward or evolves in some way, whether
Well, I would imagine. Okay, so sorry, diverging again, but like I would imagine as an artist, so you have your practice, you have your galleries, you have your institutional shows, you have all these kinds of things. Doing a festival like this, to a certain extent, is almost a testing ground or a proving ground, like taking some theories or some ideas that you might want to do for lack of better, and I apologize that it sounds bad, but like for like a more prominent exhibition that you might do somewhere else. And so like this is an opportunity for you to like investigate some idea, theory, material, whatever. And I feel like to a certain extent festivals are a great place for artists to be able to do that.
Yeah, I guess they are, but I don't think on those terms. I mean, like,
I know it's totally my thing.
I think because the most similar project that I've done before to this one is a stone circle. It's a stone circle in Marfa, in Texas, right? So it's 8 large, larger than life-sized marble boulders from Monterrey in black marble from Mexico that were trucked up to Texas, to Marfa, and then set in a circle. And there's another stone, a 9th stone, which is even larger, but has a solar array on it, 10 meters or so away, and that absorbs sunlight, generates electricity, stores it in a bank of batteries, and then every month on a full moon, an hour after sunset, just before the full moon rises, it activates in a display of light and sound in surround sound, and then the full moon rises as it sort of happens, and that was an experiment in a way,
but yet a fully formed idea.
But also a fully formed idea, yeah.
Yeah, well, and don't get me. Yeah, I guess I made it sound less important, but I mean, in the end, just like everything else in the art world, like your name is going to be associated with it, so your reputation is still associated with it. So you can't just say like, well, this is just a test over here. Don't take this.
Yeah,
thing seriously.
Exactly. You can't take it. Yeah, you can't say that because then because everyone has to believe in it and trust you. And
that's right.
So you always have to say this is like a thing, and it was a thing. You know, I mean, it was like the whole process was pretty fucked up because, you know, we spent 5 years doing this project because it was supposed to be, this guy, this curator, sort of he was doing sort of curating a show in Martha, connected to the music festival that happens there, Martha Myths. His name is Griffin Rue, and he said, have you got any ideas for like works? And I said, yeah, solar powered stone circle, and then the director at the time was like, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do it, and we were like, okay, so it's like February now, it's going to be in September, yeah, we can do that, right? But we didn't know, none of us knew what we were getting ourselves into. None of us knew how much it would cost or what it would entail. So yeah, so literally 5 years later,
I was going to say, like, just to carve marble slabs would take longer than that.
Yeah. We ended up, realizing it. And it was a kind of a labor of love and sort of like massive stressful moments, like the stones getting stuck on the border and all kinds of stuff, the politics of the border politics. And anyway, and then on the night of the unveiling, now this is the kind of
on the night of the unveiling, it rained.
No, it's kind of worse. So on the night of the unveiling, we're in the desert in Martha, and when was it? It was kind of, I think it was like January or February time. Yeah. Oh no, maybe no. It was after that. It was like April. Yeah, it was later. It was April, maybe even May. Anyway, in 2018, about an hour or so after before the unveiling, a massive storm just appeared. Hail, like the heaviest hail, like no one in Martha's ever seen it. I'm like, what the fuck? And it was like really, crazy. And the technician who was sort of leading the production in Martha sort of called me and said, look, this has happened, so I'm going to just test the piece. So he tested it and it worked fine, but he couldn't switch it off, he says, but it doesn't reset. And I was like, okay, well, just let it do its thing, and then when the time comes and the moon rises, it will just set off again. Fine. Then everyone goes on site, and people are flown in from everywhere. A lot of people from New York, from LA, from the UK, and probably other places, right? And we go on site, and this woman comes up to me and says, and she was sort of, her ancestry is like native people from that region. And she said, do you know what this land was used for? She just grabbed my arm and said, you know what this land was used for? I said, no, I don't know, but you're going to tell me, right? She was like, time travel. And I was like, okay. And she said, are you sure you know what you're doing? And I was like, no, I'm not. And then she just disappeared. Like, she just sort of like walked away like some kind of crazy, have you ever, Dungeons and Dragons,
of
Dungeon
course.
Master from Dungeons and Dragons, he just comes along and says some like kind of,
I've had experiences like that, but it usually involved LSD.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately there was no LSD. I was looking for peyote because peyote is abundant in that region.
I love it, yeah.
Right, so and I'm sure her lineage was that. Anyway, so she disappeared, and I was like, okay, weird, but yeah. So anyway, the point is that it didn't activate. The one time it had been fully tested like for months beforehand, and it was all fine, but that night it just didn't do its thing, and nobody till this day knows why it didn't do it, because there was a storm and everything, but like then the storm had passed, and we had the most beautiful landscape, the most beautiful sunset, and actually like that. There's anything that you add to the landscape can't compete with the landscape. And just the stones themselves in this sort of formation were kind of incredible. And it did do something, but it did its own thing. It just did this kind of strange humming thing. It was really weird.
Like a Rothko chapel hum kind of thing?
Kind of, but really quiet, to not even, not enough to even. And I mean, I guess some people didn't know what was supposed to happen, and
so they didn't know.
They didn't know, but like,
so it was great to them.
All right, but some people were really pissed off. There was investors and things that had put in financing to the thing, and they were like, what's going on? And we tried to figure it out, but there was this bizarre thing. I mean, it's technical, but there was a relay switch that's timed to turn on, but it had latched on and it wouldn't let go. And there's no reason why it would do that. There's like no engineer or physicist that I spoke to or anyone could explain. I said, is it something to do with the storm?
Time travel.
It could be time travel, yeah. Yeah, it might have been some portal opened. But it was very weird. And that was the only time it never worked. After that, it was completely fine every month, month in, month out, full moon, bam, it did its thing. I don't know why I'm telling you this. But
I'm not sure. So back to LIAF.
Back to LIAF. But that's so that I did that project in 2018, and it's only now that it's gonna that work, the stone circle in itself is going to be realized as a, if that was like an experimental version, there's going to be now a more considered version, so I mean, up until now, that is Stone Circle, and that is the project, but yeah. So even, and sometimes the experimental version, so the thing that's happening here, this sort of, there's obviously connections, but there's things that I've not done before in this scenario with the two pieces. But you never really know whether the experiment in the festival situation is of more, is the thing of value, or there's a more resolved, consolidated version.
Sadly, we never know whether there are any of those kind of answers until we have hindsight and distance.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that did have great impact.
Yeah.
But you won't know until later. You just keep working.
Yeah, you don't know exactly. You just keep plugging away.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, that was more than 45 minutes, though, wasn't it? We sort of just went on.
Before you go, we would like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the episode. We would also appreciate it if you would share this podcast with your friends, family, co-workers, or studio mates, anyone with an interest in the arts and creative industries. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community, both today and in the future, is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway, in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.